Mr. President.
The Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are we on a quorum call?
The Senate's in a quorum call.
I ask that the quorum call be lifted.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Republicans are in charge of the Senate, and so far they haven't put up for a vote in this Congress a single piece of original legislation to help working families. Not one. They haven't fixed a single piece of our crumbling infrastructure. They haven't put Americans back to work. They haven't brought down the soaring cost of prescription drugs, and they haven't done a thing to help the 55 million Americans who don't have access to a workplace retirement account, help them save for their retirement. But they have been busy. Here's what they've done so far. They've made it easier for giant corporations to hide the payments they make to foreign countries. They've made it easier for companies to discharge filth into our rivers and streams. They've made it easier for Americans suffering from mental illness to buy guns. They've made it easier for hunters to shoot baby bears and wolf cubs from planes. They've made it easier for companies that get big-time taxpayer-funded government contracts to steal wages from their employees. They've made it easier for employers to hide injuries their workers suffer on the job. They've made it easier for states to divert federal education dollars away from struggling schools and students. They've made it easier for states to block people who are out of work from getting unemployment insurance payments that they are entitled to by law. And they've made it easier to keep local residents from having a say in how federal lands are managed. And now they're back at it again, this time to overturn a rule that will help millions of Americans start saving for their retirement. For years, the Republican-controlled Congress has done nothing to help the 55 million Americans who don't have an employer-provided retirement plan save for their retirement. Nothing. Because of this federal inaction, 7 states have passed legislation to provide retirement accounts to their constituents, and 23 others are considering proposals. The efforts of just those 7 states could expand coverage to 15 of the 55 million Americans who don't currently have an employer-sponsored retirement account. Now, in addition to these state efforts, 3 cities are actively considering proposals to curb the retirement savings gap, potentially covering another 2 million Americans. Extending coverage to 17 million Americans would go a long ways towards starting to chip away at the retirement crisis in this country. Today, among working families on the verge of retirement, about a third have no retirement savings of any kind, and another third have total savings that are less than 1 year's income. This is a real problem, and Senate Republicans should be working hard to come up with solutions to fix it. But if they don't have any ideas of their own, the least they can do is step aside and let the hardworking governors and mayors and state treasurers and city councils and state legislatures continue their important efforts to try to solve our retirement crisis. Every single time the Senate has come to the floor of this Congress to overturn an Obama administration rule, Republican senators have said they were voting to remove burdensome federal regulations that severely limit the role of state and local governments, when local governments could do a much better job of providing for the people of our state. So why on earth are they now voting to make it harder for cities and states to help their own citizens save for retirement? Why? 3 words: Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce and the trade associations for the giant financial firms have been fighting tooth and nail to kill these retirement initiatives. Their armies of lobbyists have been deployed to peddle misinformation about what these plans do, all because the giant financial firms that the Chamber of Commerce and the trade associations represent are worried that these city and state plans might actually offer better investment products with lower fees. The American people are not calling their senators asking us to work day in and day out to overturn rules to help them save for their retirement. 72% of Republicans and 83%, oh, I got that backwards, and 83% of Democrats support these initiatives. They aren't calling us and asking us to make their water dirty or to let their employer put their lives at risk by cutting corners on safety either. The American voters didn't send us to Washington to work for the lawyers and the lobbyists that the giant corporations who keep corporate profits soaring by skirting basic regulations. This vote may be really good for filling the campaign coffers of Senate Republicans, and a few of them may pop champagne corks with their buddies at the Chamber of Commerce after this vote tonight. But Americans are watching, and they will be ready to fight back. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.